Hi, welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire, and thanks so much for joining me today. I thought it'd be fun to create some cards that have see-through elements. I like to add see-through elements to my cards because it's different than what you can buy at the store. And today's see-through elements will actually be shakers too. So all of these cards you can see through and they shake nicely with some fun inside. However, if you're not for shaker cards, you could always just make these clear windows. Let's get started with my first example, and I think it's best to look at the completed card before we get started. Here you can see how the three windows are completely see-through, and you've got the little elements that shake inside. For this card, I used some products from the newest Simon Says Stamp card kit, and this is the Window Frames kit. It comes with a 6x8 stamp set, which you see here, which you can also buy separate from the kit if you'd like. There is also a tri-window die. This comes in the kit, but again, you can buy that separately too. I like that they offer both options so you can decide what would be better for you. The stamp images in this set frame that three-window die perfectly, but you could also use those stamps to create borders. Also included in the kit is a My Favorite Things Square Shako Trio pouch. This allows you to do shaker cards very easily, and I'll use it on one of my cards today. And you can buy additional pouches separately. But I'll show you how to create a shaker card if you don't have that pouch also. So I'll show both things. There are also 3 envelopes included in the kit. A roll of double-sided tape. This is Scorpal tape, which is a very strong adhesive. I've used it many times in videos. 1/8 inch wide, and that entire roll is included in the kit. There is also a pad of 6x6 paper. Now this has got a little bit of a shine to this paper. It's a little bit glossy, and the back side is white, and the patterns are beautiful. There are also 2 packs of embellishments. One has these little blue gemstone raindrops, and the other is a bag of hearts. There's white, red, and pink in here. They look like tiny little clay hearts, and I'll be using that for one of my shaker cards. And then finally, 3 sheets of cardstock. So there's a lot in this kit. However, keep in mind you can buy the products separately, or you can use products you already have. Let's start by die cutting the 3 windows. I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch side folded note card here, and I am using my T-ruler to make sure the die is straight. I will then open up my card and run it through my die cut machine. This will die cut the 3 windows in the front of the card. I'm using my Gemini die cut machine today, but you could use any that you may have. Now I'm going to pop that die back into place, but this time run it through with the card closed. And this will cut the 3 windows into the back of the card. It's best to do that in 2 steps to make sure they cut completely. And there you have our windows that show through the entire card. Now I'm using my Misty stamping tool to stamp the floral frame around the die cut windows. I will say, I wish I would have stamped first and then die cut the windows. It would be easier to line up than what I did here, but this is what I thought of, so this is what I did. I stamped on the front with black ink. Now I'm going to open up the card without moving my stamp or the card, and I'm going to stamp that again on the inside. Now I didn't really do a good job cleaning my stamp, but that's okay because I wanted this to be a little bit darker. This is Simon Says Stamp Fog Ink, so it's a light gray on the inside and black on the outside. I noticed I got a few little black ink fingerprints on the front of the card, so I'm using my detailer tool to just erase away that ink so that I won't have to start over. I tell you, I get ink fingerprints quite often. Next, I need to have a panel with the windows cut in the same spot. This panel is 4 inches by 5 1/4. It's just a little bit smaller than our note card. I'm holding it to the back of the note card, then tracing the windows onto it so I know where to place my die to create the die cut windows. So I'm going to put the die on top, run it through my die cut machine, and I'll have a panel that's slightly smaller than our card with the windows in the same place. And I actually need to create 2 of these, and you'll see why in a moment. Okay, now off screen, I went ahead and did some coloring on the front of my card. Nothing fancy, I just did quick Copic marker coloring. However, the Copic marker did bleed through on my card because I didn't use a super heavyweight cardstock, which I should have done. If you want to use a cardstock where it doesn't bleed through, I recommend Brutus Monroe, Not Your Mama's cardstock, which I'll link below, but I didn't use that today. So I need to glue this extra panel in there to cover up my coloring. So that was the reason for one of those panels with the die cut windows. Before we add the shaker element, I need to stamp Love You onto one of the raised windows of that 3-window pouch. See that clear pouch there with the 3 openings? Those are raised. So what I'm doing is I'm using my leftover white squares and I'm just stacking some up inside so that when I stamp on it, the raised pouch doesn't like indent. So all I'm doing is putting a little support in here. You could actually put a couple quarters in there for some support, but I had these little squares that I wasn't going to use anyways. So I'm just setting them in there, flipping the pouch over in my Misty stamping tool, adding my magnet to hold it in place, and now I'm going to stamp Love You from that same stamp set that was included in the kit that I showed you earlier. I'm stamping this with Stazon Black Ink. I can't find my Stazon Black Ink re-inker, so I had to double stamp it, and we'll just give that a little bit of time to dry. Now I have my sentiment on the pouch. Next, I'm adding some Lucy's Cards Ice Cube jewels. These are just clear. Then I added a few pink jewels inside also. Next, we'll add some double-sided tape from that kit to the outside edges of this. I probably should have done this before adding the jewels inside, but it worked just fine. So this tape will hold nicely. Any strong double-sided tape would work here. Now I'm going to remove the release paper. And I have another piece of clear acetate over there. This clear acetate piece is flat and it's just bigger than our pouch. This is Hero Arts acetate. Any recycled piece would work too. I happen to have some of this and it worked perfectly. So now we have this clear pouch with 3 windows with the shaker bits inside. And we just need to add that to the back of our card. Because remember, I want the shaker window to be on the inside of the card so you can see through it. So on the back of the card, I'm putting lots of strong double-sided tape around our open windows, and then I can add our shaker pouch right into it. So I'm going to press that right in through the window. Sorry, my head gets in the way, and now the patch is attached to the back. Now I'm going to put more double-sided tape, and remember how I had that panel where we die cut the 3 square windows, and it's a little bit smaller than our card. I'm going to lay that right on top to sandwich the pouch in place. These pouches are really handy to make shaker cards, and they come in different shapes and sizes. I really like this 3-window design. So here's a look at the completed card. You can see completely through the card through the 3 windows and see the little gemstones move inside. When you open up the card, you still see the Love You sentiment on the window, and there's room to stamp above that gray stamping on the inside. I think this is a nice alternative to having a shaker window just on the front of a card. This way you see completely through, and when you open the card, you see that shaker element also. Now this card used that pouch, that shaker pouch from My Favorite Things. I did want to make a version of this that just used the tools that you likely already have, in case you don't have one of those pouches. So this uses craft foam and acetate. I did use the window die from the kit and the stamp set from the kit for the hearts around the frame, but I also used some images from this clearly besotted love letter stamp set. I thought these little pigs were so cute. Now keep in mind, this set also has a large rectangle and an envelope flap, so you can actually stamp an envelope on your card, which I think is a fun thing for us card makers, but again, I just used the cute little piggies on this one. So I have a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch note card with the side fold that I made from Simon Says Stamp Fog cardstock. I'm stamping the heart frame from the kit stamp set with Hero Arts soft granite ink. I stamped it once on the front, and without moving the card but opening it, I'm going to stamp it once on the inside. This will ensure the stamped image is in the same location on the front and inside of the card. Next, I'll line up the window die right in the center of the heart frame. As I mentioned earlier, it's easier to stamp first and then die cut. I'll run it through the die cut machine once with the card open. Then I'll close the card and run it through again, and that will cut the windows on the front and the inside of the card. And you can see how it lines up perfectly. As I did before, I need to create a panel that is slightly smaller than our note card. This is 4 by 5 1/4. I'm going to line it up on the back of the card, flip it over, trace the windows onto it so I know where to place my die. Once I have the pencils in place, I can line up the die right along those pencils, run this through our die cut machine, and then I have a panel with the windows in the perfect place. The last piece we need to die cut is a piece of white craft foam for dimension to create our shaker window. This piece is smaller than the panel, so it's about 3 3/4 inches by 5 inches. I'm going to die cut the windows kind of off to the side, and it die cuts beautifully. So this will form the shaker walls right behind that panel that we created. Don't worry, it's really easy when you see it come together. Just give me a minute here. I have 2 pieces of acetate that are cut to be a little bit larger than the window area, so about 5 inches by 2 inches. On the back of that panel that we cut from fog cardstock, I'm laying one of the acetate pieces down. Then I'll put glue on my craft foam piece and lay that on top of the acetate, lining up the windows. So the acetate is sandwiched between our panel and the craft foam piece. This will form the back of our card actually. In this case, the foam tape's going on the back of our card. We have to do it a little bit different to make the card completely see-through. Okay, now it's time to fill in those little shaker windows. You can put whatever you want in here, but I'm just using the white, pink, and red hearts that I found in the kit. Next, I'll use liquid adhesive around the craft foam, making sure to go up close to those window edges, and add the next piece of acetate, so that the little hearts are sandwiched between 2 pieces of acetate and there's craft foam around it. This time I used liquid adhesive, but you could use that double-sided tape. I just thought this would be faster and wanted to show you another option. Now I'm putting liquid adhesive one last time on the top of the craft foam, all around and even on top of the acetate, and I'm lining up the note card on top of that. So the shaker window element is glued to the back of our card. I then put something heavy on it while it dries. Once it's dry, I'm opening up my card here, and I'm adding little stamped images to the front. These are from the Clearly Besotted stamp set. I stamped, colored, and cut them out, and I'm adding them around the open windows on the front of the card. You can see on the back of the card there on the left is the shaker element. After I've added all of my little stamped images to the front, I did stamp a sentiment. I did the Hi There from the My Favorite Things Heap of Hellos stamp set. I thought that Hi There was a perfect fit to the left of our stamped and die cut windows. Now at this point, this has a lot of dimension to it, and I don't want to mess up the stamping on it at this point since I've completed the card. So I've taped my card into my MISTI, and I'm stamping the sentiment with black ink, and I actually double stamped it because the first time I didn't ink it up completely. I then added some aqua shimmer pen into the open gray hearts on the background just to add a little bit of sparkle, and I added them in the colored red hearts too. To make the eyes stand out on my little pigs, I used black glaze pen. A little dot of this is perfect to make eyes and noses stand out. Now I did create a matching envelope using the Simon Says Stamp A2 envelope die and some Lawn Fawn 12 by 12 paper. I have a video showing how I prefer to make envelopes, and I'll link to it here if you want to check it out. And I was able to create that 2-tone envelope. Okay, so here is the completed card. You can see how the little hearts move around inside of those windows freely, and you can see through the card entirely. In the inside, I added a little pig, and you do have those gray hearts that I filled in with the shimmer for some shine. And in this close-up look, you can see the shimmer in those hearts and on the red. You can also see the shine on the eyes of the pigs that I created with that black glaze pen. I really like small little critter elements like this because you can create a fun scene with them. So there's 2 ways to create windows on your card that are see-through with shaker elements in the inside. Next, I wanted to create one more card, and this is using a background die with some see-through shaker elements. And I'll be honest, you got to join me in putting on a thinking cap to get through this card, but once you see it done, you'll see that it's not too bad. And the fun part is the shaker element is just the sky behind that rainbow, and you can see through the card completely. This is the Waffle Flower Fresh Rainbow Panel die. I die cut it 4 times from white cardstock, and that'll help us form the card itself. I also have created 3 acetate sheet windows. These are cut to be a little bit smaller than 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I again used Hero Arts acetate sheets for that, but you can use whatever you have. On the back of one of my white die cuts, I'm putting some of the double-sided tape around the outside edges and a little bit behind that inside piece there, just so it sticks to the acetate completely. After I remove the release paper, I'll take one of my acetate clear pieces and lay it right onto it. So what I'll have is a white die cut panel with a piece of acetate on the back. This will be the front of our card, but we need that little hinge on the side so that we can open up the card like a normal card. So it opens up normally. So we need a hinge over there. So what I did is I took a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch side folding note card, and I cut about 1/4 of an inch off the creased edge. So we have this little V piece. This will be the hinge for our card. So on the left side of this rainbow panel, I need to adhere this little hinge. So I'm using a strip of double-sided tape, putting it on the back side of the front of our card. So I'm going to put 2 strips here because I really want to make sure that stays put. After I remove the release paper, I can glue that to the front of our folded hinge. So basically at this point, I have a white die cut with acetate behind it, and on the back left side, we have a little hinge to create our card. So you can see that's the front of the card. We'll glue the back of our card to the other side of this hinge. Since you can see my adhesive there when you open up the card, I'm going to put another one of the die cut panels right on top. So this is on the back of our panel with the hinge on the side. I'm putting some more of that double-sided tape. Then I will take one of our other die cuts and line it up. This just sandwiches the acetate between and hides our adhesive. So this will still be the front of the card with the hinge on the left. It's just nice and durable and looks pretty. Okay, so now I'm going to set that aside, and this is the third white die cut. On the top or the front of this white die cut, I'm putting double-sided tape. I put it around the edges, but I'm also going to put it right on this left rainbow piece, right along that left side there, and on the right one up here on the right. And I can kind of curve my tape to go along it. Once I have that in place, I can go ahead and remove the release paper and add the acetate on top. So this is where we're going to add our shaker bits here in a moment. This will be the inside of the card or the back panel of the card. But we need to add it to the front half of the card. So on the left side, on the top left side of this, right on top of the acetate, I'm putting some double-sided tape and adding the hinge to that. So you'll see our card start to form here. So unlike the other cards, this one has acetate on the front of the card and on the inside of the card. Right now it's completely see-through, but we'll change that up in a moment. We do need to add one last die cut panel to the inside to cover up that adhesive that's showing in there. But to make our card close nicely, I did cut a little bit off the left of this die cut, just a tiny bit, about 1/8 of an inch. It helps to make the card close nicely. On the back of this die cut, I'm once again adding some double-sided tape around the outside and the inside center there. I will then add our third and final piece of acetate onto this. Now the last bit of adhesive we need is on top of this acetate. So on the back side of this die cut, I put the double-sided tape around the frame and they're outside, and then along the outside of the rainbow. So up at the top there and now on this curve here too. Actually, I didn't need to do this on the earlier one, but you definitely need to do it here. Okay, so now it's time to do our shaker. I have adhesive exposed here, and we're just going to put our shaker bits in that top right and on the bottom left. I have little silver stars here, and don't do what I do, because watch, I tried to just pour them in directly, and check it out. I had a mess there, so I had to brush them off to the side and scoop them back in later. All you need is a little bit in this bottom left triangle and a little bit in the top right triangle. Now you're not going to get much shaker movement in this one because I didn't use foam tape. I'm just using double-sided tape, but it still works and looks great. Okay, once I have those little stars in place, I'm putting that panel that we have the adhesive exposed right on top, gluing it right to the inside of our card, sandwiching those stars in between the acetate. So there we have an acetate piece on the front and acetate on the inside and back of our card. Now we can fill in our little rainbow pieces. So I use a background die and cut them from scraps, and I'm putting rainbow pieces on the inside of my card here. This will be the area where I can write my little personal sentiment, little message there. So once I have all the rainbow pieces in here and I'm gluing it on top of the acetate, we're going to do the same on the front of the card, the back of the front of the card, and the back of the card so that everything looks nice. I could have left the front of the card completely clear to show through to the color inside, but I wanted the rainbow to be continuous. So that's why I went ahead and did it. So we have colored pieces on the front of the card, the back of the front of the card, the inside of the card, and the back of the card, just so we don't see any adhesive and you have a continuous look. This is a great chance to use up scraps that you may have, and even pattern paper scraps if you wanted. This is also one of those where once you've made it once, it kind of makes sense and you can make it again. It's a great card for different occasions. I used a sentiment from the Waffle Flower Sweet Sentiment stamp set. They have a few different stamp sets that fit nicely into the little opening on the front of this card. So here's a look at the completed card. You can see how it's completely see-through to the back side, and you have the little shaker stars inside. You can write a personal message in there. Now keep in mind, because I did not use any foam tape or craft foam, those stars aren't going to move a whole lot, just a little bit. They're sandwiched between acetate. But I think that really works here because it kind of keeps the stars from just falling to the bottom too. So it's another way to make shaker windows. And by the way, if you do not like shaker cards, you can also do floating elements in clear pieces using a laminator. I'll link to a video here showing that, and you can combine that technique with this see-through window technique to create a different type if you want. Okay, there you have it. A fun way to make see-through shaker cards. If you wanted a closer look at any of these products, they are linked below in my YouTube description. But I think this is one of those techniques where you can probably use some basic dies that you have at home. If you want to check out some related videos, they are linked here in the middle. And thank you for spending this time with me, and we'll see you again very soon.